Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to the fourth episode of this tutorial series. We did set up the whole aim function, and we can aim up, we can aim down as well. So shooting straight, shooting up and shooting down. We also have the fire animation ready for shooting straight, for shooting down and shooting up. So this is just our preparation in order to shoot with the right mouse button. We want to aim first. After aiming, we did set up those fire animations. And out of these animations, we have a montage for shooting straight, shooting up, and shooting down. Here's down and here's up. So let's start by creating a socket for the pistol. And I will just call it a barrel. So if I go back here to weapons, open the pistol folder, and we have this BP pistol, which is just temporarily our blueprint, which gets replaced anyway once we add an inventory system with a actor class. And then we have a master item, and out of this master item blueprint, we're going to create children. And then part of those children, there will also be a pistol out of this master item. So this is just temporarily, but it's quite easy to replace. So let's go into the skeleton of the pistol. So not the skeleton mesh, but the skeleton. When we open that, you are going to have a root. So because it's a skeleton, so in this case we just have a root, and then just add a socket, just click on this socket and let's call it barrel with a capital B in this case, but you can call it however you want. It's just important that you have the same naming convention later. So let's just drag it up, make sure that everything on the right side here, you have also a window for the socket parameters. Make sure that everything here is zeroed out, and you just move on the Z-axis here. So let me just have a good front view, move a little up, move this one. And make sure once you have the right height for your barrel, just make sure the X value here, the X-axis on this gizmo is straight. It just has this kind of forward direction. When you look at your pistol, this is pretty important. Otherwise, if your X is, let's say, to the left or to the right, then obviously the line trace will be completely like switched up. This is not what you want. So make sure the X value is the forward vector here. So it's going out straight. Save that. Let's close this. The second step is we go back into our third person, which is the default folder here. Go to input, actions, and out from the aim which we have created in the previous episode. Just right click, duplicate, rename the aim to shoot in this case, or you can call it fire, I don't really care. When you open that one up, you have a trigger which was from the aim, so we just replace this with press and just save. I think within this index here, 0.5 should be fine for now. So we can change it later if it's just too slow, the input action or something. So, but I think it should be fine for now. Okay. Then we are almost ready with the input, but in order to find our input event, of course, we are going to add another action mapping here. Then we choose our IA shoot, which has just been created. And let's open that one up. Click on this keyboard here, click again. So we make sure it's the left mouse button. So basically just double click and this is fine. I mean, you can also just like use this drop down menu here and go to mouse, and then you can also just use the left mouse button, but I'm lazy. I just prefer to click on the keyboard, and then you can just press the button you want. In this case, it's the left mouse button. All right, fine. So let me open this one, just in case if I forget something, but this is fine. Okay, save and close this one. So in our previous episode, when we go to our RE_character here, inside the animation, luckily we have already prepared our shooting animations because we're smart and work as less as possible to still get a really good and clean result. This is our goal in this whole series. But let's adjust one thing here for each fire anim montage. You have a blend, and you open this one. Just in case if it's not opened, you can just open this one up. And you have a blend in time and always the blend out time. But in this case, because this is, you have to see, this one is pretty like rapid. So it starts in the first frame, it's moving backwards pretty fast because we want to have this recoil feeling. So it's happening sudden. So what we need to do in order to have this firing off properly, you need to set the blend in to 0. So it starts right away. This is pretty necessary. So let's save this. And let's do the same for the shooting straight. Blend in time, put this to 0. And for the aim up montage, let's set this guy to 0 as well. And also we can close this. And now finally we can go to our BP character here. Because next to our equip function, which we did in the previous episode here, you can see, okay, we are spawning the BP pistol, which we are going to switch later when we have an inventory, because the BP pistol is just for testing purposes only. But we are going to leave the socket for our pistol, of course, which is part of the skeletal mesh pistol itself. It's not part of the blueprint. So we can just leave this, but we need to change this one later when we have an inventory and master item. Okay. But what we need to do is we can already create a variable here. So just right click on the return value, promote to a variable, not local, promote it to a variable. Just connect that one up. So basically what we're doing out of this return value, the spawn actor node is looking for a blueprint actor, or basically the class of an actor BP. Whatever we set here when this function gets fired off, whatever we're setting here, this is basically the output. So this one is telling us, okay, this is the object reference. Okay, this one in this case would be the pistol. So when we have a master item later, and we call this master item, for example, BP master item, and then when we create children out of the BP master item, so basically we have one children for pistol, one children for knife, one children for a healing item, and a children for bullets, a children for key, and stuff like this. So everything we are going to pick up later in our inventory will be like part of this master item. So we can set this out of this master item. We can find basically the child as well. So this is what we're basically going to switch. But we already set the variable for this pistol blueprint. So you can see here, this is our reference. And this is pretty important because once this pistol has been equipped, we have specific information that this item has been set. This is pretty important later for our game. So let's call it just pistol. So we know later when we use this variable, we need to get information out of this actor, for example, location or rotation, or I don't know, something like this, or some variables inside this master item later. We can just drag it, and then we can just get it, and then we can get all necessary information for any type of function when we want to have an event, triggering of an event. Okay, so let me get this a little cleaner here. And the next thing we need to do basically is we close this one. Back into our event graph, let's click into functions, another function. So click on the plus and call it fire montage. So now you might have guessed, out of this fire montage, we want to play basically an anim montage. So we can make things pretty easy and just get our montage here, RE character, sorry, animation, shoot, and this is our straight. Yeah, I think this one is just shooting straight. But the problem is when we aim up or when we aim down, this gets a reset, and then you aim down, but then he's shooting straight, because this is just a fire montage for shooting straight. So this is the reason why we did 2 more animations and switched them up for shooting up and shooting down, as you basically can see. How can we integrate this one? So when we go back to our blueprint, in order to have this one fired, or the shooting up or shooting down animation, we need to use the pitch value basically. So we have already the pitch value, and we need to make a check basically. So just keep pressing B and left click, and then you have a branch, and you can just set up this one, and you say if this is equal, so is this equal to 0, which would be shooting straight. So this is our default pitch value. If this is 0, this can fire off. So yeah, let's do this. So this is our first check, because in most cases we're just shooting straight. So this is the function, and then we are set. But it can happen, of course, that this one is not 0, so it's false. So what we're gonna do is we just copy this one and we do another check. So just in case if this is false, we can just make another check. Let's do a 1. And let's just copy this one because we need to play another montage. In this case, this would be for 1, as you might remember. I'm always going out of this folder, sorry. Into animation, shoot. In this case, +1 is going up. So we get the AS fire up montage. Also, okay, I will tell you later. Let's just continue, and then I will show you what I want to change. But in this case, if it's not 0 and if it's not aiming up, so it's neither 0, neither it is 1, so it could only be -1 for aiming down. So it's not really, this is not really a lot to check here. So let's just copy this one or just press B and left click to get another branch. And if it's straight or up is false, checking the pitch value, we need to play this one. And now this function is complete because it can only be a 0, 1 or a -1. And then we switch up the animation for AS fire down montage. So make sure you have all the montages and not the animation because, yeah. And then we are fine. This is it so far. Let's compile and save finally. And now next to the aim function, let me switch this one because I want to have my event begin play. Then after event begin play, let's have the walk. Then we have the aim, maybe here. And then we have a shooting function called IA_shoot, which we set up earlier in the beginning of this episode. And now for the shoot, we need to create a Boolean. It's always good for every action you do, you have a separate Boolean, which makes sense. So when we just create another Boolean here, let's say in this case is capital IS is shooting, question mark. So we can just decide, set is shooting. So when we trigger the left mouse button, because we set up our left mouse button in this case, yes, we click on this, enable is shooting is positive. And then let's get an is valid. You think like, why is valid? This is the reason just to avoid any errors and just to make it more performant. Because if we find the BP pistol, so if we have the BP pistol, then it's valid. If there's no pistol equipped, so for example, if this if this function is not getting fired, we are not going to have a return value and we're not going to have this BP pistol. But when this equip pistol function gets fired in an event, in this case would be event begin play, so starting for every level, you are going to have a valid actor blueprint, in this case BP pistol. So this is just a check, just to make sure when there's no pistol we cannot shoot, of course. Let's get the fire montage here, and when it's valid we can just fire off, and then inside this we are going to have the check if it's maybe straight up or down. Okay, nice. Let's compile and save this. And now also, as you might have guessed, for the completed and cancelled, we need to update our shooting because we are not shooting anymore when we completed pressing the left mouse button, or maybe it gets cancelled. So we just get our is shooting and we just leave it at false. And so when it's cancelled or when it's completed, it's false. Let me just drag this one up so it's a little more organized. Compile and save. And also, let's go to the event begin play again. Let's go into the equip pistol function. And you can see here in the last episode, we did set our pistol equip boolean to true. But I think it makes more sense if we just alt click, so to disconnect it. So let's just connect it straight into the spawn actor. And let's just put the equip pistol here. It makes more sense. Because also, when things get fired, it really matters what is going to fire first and what's the next node. What is the next node? That does really matter. So make sure that only the pistol is equipped when the pistol actually is attached. So when the pistol is attached, and we already have a reference here from the spawned pistol, then our pistol is set to true. Our pistol equipped is set to true. Compile and save. Now we get to the interesting stuff here. We create another function and we call this function f. You can call it sphere trace or line trace, but in this case I'm using a sphere trace. Let's make it more precise to see to find it later, so it's a lot easier. So let's call it f pistol sphere trace. So if you want to use a line trace, you can just call it pistol line trace. But in my case, sphere trace is much better when we consider those game mechanics, because we don't really have like this first person or like this modern like aiming system where everything gets updated live and you can see the, how is it called, the reticle. This is not really how the old Resident Evil works. So no, I don't want to save for now. So this is not how Resident Evil works in the old days. We always have to like guess in what direction we shoot. Well, you have to think like this. A line trace is just the line. It's just a tiny dot traveling through your world according where you shoot, and when you have the socket location and the socket rotation, get the forward vector, and then your line trace is basically just a tiny dot, just like a pixel, and it's just completely like firing through the world. But a sphere trace is better because you have basically like a cylinder, or like in this case it's like a sphere, and you can just make it a little bigger, and then you likely have a much higher chance to really hit a zombie. Otherwise it's pretty hard to really hit the zombie on every angle. So I hope this one is pretty clear now. So let's just it's pretty easy, let's just get the sphere trace by channel, and you can see, let's give it a little more space because we need the start and we need to fill the end with information. So what we need, we did set up this variable here. Let's get the pistol. So when the pistol is equipped, we have this information. And out of this pistol, we get socket location. So pistol. So we can see here now it's like a pistol, and from the pistol. So what is this? Basically, this is I will show you. Let's go to the BP pistol here. Pistol. So the reason why we have like a pistol, and then because we renamed the actor blueprint pistol, and out of this pistol we get this skeleton mesh pistol. This is the reason why we have basically pistol and pistol. But what's really important is that when you have in this target, you just have the pistol skeleton. You can see here the skeletal mesh. So this is basically the skeleton mesh type. So out of this pistol itself, so not from the blueprint, but in this case we are more specific, which is the skeleton mesh, as I told you already. We get its socket location, which in this case is, as you might remember as well, the barrel. So just type it exactly like how you did it, how you set up in the beginning. This is the barrel. This is basically when we open this one up and let's go here on the right side, click on this folder, glass, or this binocular, or how you call it, whatever, you know what I mean. And just open up the skeleton. And then you can see here, we did set up the barrel, right? So just in order for you to understand. And out of this get socket location, we also want information about the rotations. It's really necessary to get socket rotation, because as soon as we rotate with our player, the rotation of the pistol is like completely off. So then we are shooting like diagonal or something, like we shoot completely like this is garbage. So we need, out of this socket rotation, we need to get the forward vector. And we just not only get the forward vector, but we also need to have a value for the forward vector, because this one needs to get multiplied with a value. And you can just hard code it. This means like, let's change this to float single precision. Let's change this to float single precision. You can have out of this pistol, you can make it, you can change it later if you want. So you can make a float inside your pistol, for example, when you go into the pistol BP. But in this case, it doesn't really make sense. I'm just showing you what you could do later. Just get a variable, which will be like a float, because we did change this to a float, right click, and then to float single precision. And then you can just use a float, and you could call it like bullet trace distance. And you can set this one when you compile and save. You can set this for maybe to like, I don't know, 3000 is plenty. So we can make sure that this one gets, the forward vector gets multiplied by 3000. So it's like shooting for long range. Compile and save this. And then out of this, you could get the get bullet, I'm stupid, sorry. Out of this blueprint, of course, sorry. Get bullet trace distance. So now we have this value, you can see here, is 3000, because we did hard code it for 3000, and you can just multiply it by this bullet distance. But in our case, it doesn't really matter, because this is just a placeholder, BP. And so this means we can just, for now, hard code it, we don't need it. So let's go to float double precision again, and just type in 3000. Doesn't really matter. And then we can just delete this one, because we are not using this blueprint for the next episodes. It's just for testing purposes. Okay, and also here, a barrel. So just override the none to a barrel as well. Make sure everything is correct. So the name is identical to our socket in our skeletal mesh, pistol skeletal mesh. And then out of this multiply here, let's get an add. And out of this add, press Control and just drag it down here. So we swap it. And out of this socket location, which is the vector, we can just connect it. So this location, and on top of this location, so from where do we shoot? From where do we shoot our sphere trace? From our barrel of the skeletal mesh of the pistol we did set up. We add its rotation, so we add the rotation of the pistol because we are moving in the world, basically with the pistol, it makes sense. And out of this rotation, we want to shoot straight, so get the forward vector, and we multiply it by 3000, so we make sure that we have a long range distance. I hope that makes sense. And then this would be the end. But the begin is basically just the location. Let's compile and save this one. And then let's just make it a little cleaner here. Something like this. So now it looks a little better. Okay. And we are almost done. Before we can see anything, let's just get this radius and set it to, let's say, 5. 5 is enough, I think. Don't make this radius too big, so then it's just too easy to hit something. Let's make it 5, but you can just update this one later if you want. And trace channel visibility is good, and let's get for duration, and we want to see it for, let's say, draw time, let's say 1 second. Let's use 2 seconds. So we just set the trace to visible and have a draw time of 2 seconds. Just to make sure how the bullet trace will be. And now we just get the pistol sphere trace and connect that one up. Okay. Drag select everything, press Q to make it straight. And this one as well. Nice. Compile and save. Also, let's optimize something here. Let's go into the fire montage again and set these play rates to 2. Play rate here as well, 2, and play rate here, let's set this one to 2 as well, because I think it's a little slow. It depends on your animation. Just check it if it's just like a little too long, or because like the fire animation takes too long to for you to finish. Increase the play rate here, and I strongly advise you to always set the play rate in your node and not into your anim montages. Let's go to the animation sequence, and let's just see if this is not maybe just too long for us. Because you need to understand, once we click shoot, this whole animation gets fired. Of course, you can change the duration also in the blueprint, but I think we can just cut this one out because we don't need it anyway. So let's just have it clean. And I think let's play it to see. I think we should already stop here. And then maybe, yeah, we will also set a firing cooldown, because if we don't have a fire cooldown, we can just like click, 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 click. And this is like, yeah, you can just spam the button and the zombie is dead immediately and your bullets are gone. But this is not the reason. We want to have like a pew, 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 something like this. And we are going to set this one up as well. So we are trying to prevent, or we will prevent, spamming the fire button. So, but for now, we should have. Let's see how long should be the cooldown. Yeah, okay. Let's go maybe to something like this. So this would be like frame 20. So let's go here, frame 20. Right click, and then remove from frame 24 to 31. Maybe just a little more. Let's go remove this one as well. So we remove 21 to 23 as well. So in my case, my firing animation is now 19 frames and also has a play rate of 2. You can also set the rate scale here to 2. It's the same like you would have here, but just change it here. So then you're not going to screw up your anim montage. You can just change it here. Okay, and then we are doing the same for the other montages. So let's say this one should be the exact same length, right? So this is 19 frames. So I really want to have the same amount of frames for firing down. And then we remove 21 to 22, and then we should be, yeah, then now we just have 19 frames in total. Save this one as well. Let me just double check here if I did really save. Yes, I did. And then we go to the fire up as well. And now we have exactly 19 frames. It's the same animation. We just rotated our character up and down. So it's all the same animation sequence with the exact same amount of frames, and all have the rate scale of 2. So now we can make sure everything is now clean. But we are not really done, because let me demonstrate you the shooting function now. Now we can basically shoot, and our LineTrace is updating. So you can see here, here's the zombie, and here's the zombie. But the problem, you can see, I can just bam, 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 just spam. And now this is like almost like a machine gun. So when there's like a zombie, and you're like, oh nice, I have like 19 bullets or 17 bullets in my magazine, and you're like, oh my god, there's a zombie, and you're like, dun, 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 dun. Okay, he's dead, nice, let's go. And this is not the case, because we want to make this really like survival, and we want to make it a little challenging, of course, and not make this game like a joke. So this is the reason why we need to set up a fire cooldown. So in order to have a fire cooldown, we're still going to use a delay, but we can set it up a lot cleaner, because we want to keep things clean, and we also want to not mess up our blueprint, and not use like 5 different nodes just for one fire cooldown. So basically we are just using 2 nodes, and that's it, and we're just gonna make a macro out of this. So what we should do is, when our pistol is valid, so when our pistol is equipped, because we can find this one, as I told you before, we need to make another check. So we are like a border patrol here, and telling Unreal Engine, oh no, wait. Yeah, you have your pistol. Okay, so this is what you have. You can show us the document. Yeah, you have the pistol. But can you actually shoot? And can you actually also aim? Can you do all this? And then maybe we can go to the next step. So this is what we really need to do. So let's create a macro, and let's call this one player can shoot. So then go to inputs. Of course, we need an input, which is an execution pin. So we can just connect that one up, and we call it, I always like to call the macro check. If it's a Boolean or something like this, a branch, I like to call it check. And then out of this, let's get is aiming, because if we actually want to fire, we need to set, no, we are not setting the aiming. The aiming is already set, sorry. We need to get the information of his aiming. It's either true or false. So we drag this one and get the branch. But this is not really enough, because in order to have a fire cooldown, we need to have another boolean, because this is basically now our boolean for the cooldown. So if you think like, why is he having so many booleans? This particular boolean is just for our cooldown. This one is false. Yeah, by default now it's false. So, but let's just get is aiming, drag this one out, and then end can shoot. So we make a double check. Unreal Engine is checking, okay, is aiming is true, and can shoot is true. So both are true, and then connect true to the output, and then we can basically proceed with the fire animation and actually make damage later. But if you're not aiming and also at the same time you cannot shoot, it's false. So in order to fire off, we need to have the shooting to true, and we need to have the is aiming to true. So the first one is pretty easy to understand, but can shoot, I will explain to you right now. I'm just drag select, press Q, and then compile and save. And let's close this macro. Okay, let me just update my opinion here, because I told you the can shoot is, it's still of the can shoot on event begin play is false, right? So, but we can be smart, because the first shot, let's just set this one to true. But now when we get our macro, player can shoot. So we find our pistol, it's nice, check. And then he's checking like, yes, he's aiming. So we are basically pressing the right mouse button. So we are aiming. And at the same time, we need to have this one as on true as well, which is by default. So, but now the good thing about this is we use another macro for our fire cooldown. So now it's going to make sense for you. Because when we get another macro, and we call it fire cooldown, we can just get our can shoot, and after our shooting mechanic, after we did shoot, we set this one to false. And then for our output, we put a delay inside. I find a delay to a 4.75 to be quite nice. And then after this delay of almost 1 second, or let's say in this case it's just 3/4 of a second, we can just set the can shoot, and we update this one to true as well. Compile and save. And this is basically our fire cooldown, and this is the reason why we have like another boolean. And now we can just get the fire cooldown, and we always put this one in at the end. So in this case, we don't really need the output, so let's just do something like this. So later, if you want to have another output, you can just boom, and then you have an output. But in this case, we don't need that. So just delete the output. Okay, so just in order for you to understand, let me re-evaluate. Once we press our right mouse button, we know when it's triggered is aiming, and we put this one to hold. So every time we keep pressing, it's always true the whole time. Once we just release our right mouse button, the aiming gets updated to false. When we want to shoot, we know once we click the left mouse button, which is the left mouse button is assigned to our shoot event, we know that is shooting is for this small amount of time shooting is positive. And the next step is we find our pistol. So if it's equipped, we can shoot. If it's not equipped, we don't have this information, this particular information about our pistol blueprint. So it would not is not valid, and then we cannot really fire. We cannot shoot. So this is basically like a check. Okay, I'm finding your pistol. Then you can proceed. Can the player shoot? Is aiming? Yes, we are already aiming with our right mouse button. So this is true the whole time we keep pressing our right mouse button. And can shoot is true by default. So when we go back, yes. Once we shoot, we have the fire montage. So we can see either one of those, depending on if we aim up, down, or straight, will get fired off. After this, we have our LineTrace, so our bullet is basically traveling through the world. So right after this fire montage and right after our bullet sphere trace, the last step, which always needs to be the last step. So even when we add something here, this needs to be always at the end. we know that we just set automatically, we set the can shoot to false, have a small delay, and then we put it to positive again. And this is why we cannot spam anymore, because it needs 0.75 seconds in order to have this check can shoot again to be true. You can see I'm spamming, I'm just like click, 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 and nothing is happening. And you can see he's just bam, 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 bam. Okay. And you can also see like this animation is also working properly. Okay. Nice. This is it. So yeah, and for this episode, we are done. We did set up our shooting function correctly. Everything is working properly now. So, I mean, this is still pretty early for simple game mechanics. We are still in a really early stage. So, of course, we don't have any bugs right now, but trust me, bugs will come. So, as we're getting further and we have more progress, of course, more bugs will sneak in, but we will just also do some bug fixing during the process. And yeah, so see you guys in the next one.